Once you've got on-leash greetings, it's more potentially problematic because then you've eliminated all the choices. What are dogs' normal choices? Fight or flight, right? But it's not just fight or flight, it's freeze, fight, flight, or fool around. And Strider does fool around like crazy. He's really, really good. It's just appeasing. That's what fooling around is. So it's, in fact, one of the interesting things about adding those two, the freeze and the fool around, is that there were studies that had freeze, fight, flight, and they did have the tend, befriend, which is fool around. And then they took it out because all the studies were done on males. And then as soon as they put females back in, whether it was with regard to animals or humans, as soon as they put the females back in, tend, befriend, or fool around became much more of a honest-to-God choice. It's the same choice that a lot of human beings make if someone is being overly aggressive towards them. They tend to try to appease. And it happens more often with females than with males. And indeed, in the case of dogs, it also happens more with females and with neutered males than it does with intact males. Because testosterone causes arousal. Testosterone doesn't cause aggression, by the way, it just causes arousal. So, but an animal that gets into a state of arousal is going to make a couple of choices. Those choices are not the choices you want them to make, necessarily. The other thing that I think was interesting, that when you were looking at the music one, how the dogs were zigzagging back and forth. Was there a dog that was going in a straight line at all for more than a couple seconds? One of the interesting things about arousal is if a dog gets into fight-flight mode, instead of this zigzaggy move, which you'll get a lot, they go into straight line move. And that will cause problems, whether it's running away, which will cause another dog to start to chase them, or going forward, which will, of course, cause the other dog to panic, and then you might have a fight or the other dog choosing to flee. But as soon as you get into that state of arousal, that's what kicks in the straight line movement. If an animal or a human being is panicked, they run in a straight line. Y'all see those movies, right? Where the woman is going, ah, and you're going, would you hide behind a car or something? But that's what it is panic causes straight line movement. Whereas if you're actually thinking, if you're using your front brain, you will move in an erratic area. So one of the problems with dogs that have a leash aggression is that because of the pressure that you're pulling back on the leash and they're pulling forward on the leash, the straight line becomes automatic. So it increases the arousal level. The straight line is giving the bad information to other dogs, and actually to other people probably too, although we don't even know it in most cases. We see another dog coming straight at us. We don't know why we're worried, but we're worried, right? If you've got a dog going straight at you, being held on a leash, and they're walking like this, right? You get nervous, and it's because of that. So if a dog is on a leash, they can't do the tend, befriend, the fool around. It's impossible in most cases unless the person who's holding the leash knows what the heck they're doing. If they know what they're doing, then they're able to help the dogs do the fool around kind of stuff. If you don't do that, then fights are likely. Even dogs that are totally friendly will fight when they are both on leash or one of them is on leash. That's one of the things that it took me a long time to figure out, is that an off-leash dog can tell an on-leash dog. I don't know that they see the leash. I think what they see is the straight line motion, and that makes them get nervous. So we have dogs that only attack dogs that are on leash. And that would show a great deal of discrimination, wouldn't it? There's a lead. Okay, we'll get him now. So if you're doing intros, then you end up doing what we call the dance of the dogs, which looks kind of foolish. But if you've got dogs on leash, then you have to do that. So that's why I was saying earlier that we should have videotaped the meeting we just did between the pit bull, intact male pit bull that we have out in the back, and Strider, because we had them both on leash. And the pit bull absolutely locked and loaded on Strider. It was, I mean, if I was Strider, I would be going, oh, okay, fine, yeah. So he just, target on Strider, and Strider went, oh, that's okay. And Strider's ears went back, and then they actually got close to each other, and then everything started to calm down. But we were, both Larry and I were being very careful about trying to keep the leashes as slack as possible and keeping the leash between the dogs and us, which can be very difficult if you're doing the dance of the dogs. So as it turned out, Strider thought the pit bull was just the cutest thing that God ever put on earth, and he wanted to hump him. And the pit bull was like, yeah, go ahead. So this is, this is a big blue pit bull who looks meaner than all get out, and he said, oh yeah, everything is fine. So, okay, so dance of the dog. This is another pit bull. This is not the pit bull from a few minutes ago. This is a dog that a client brought in to see whether or not that it would be a good dog for them to adopt. And so they wanted the dog to meet other dogs. They wanted to walk on trails, and so they were worried about it. And as a matter of fact, I think it was probably a good idea to be worried about it. So here, if you can see, our leashes are very slack as possible. We're doing a little walk around so that the leash stays between the dog and us. Now that's an interesting move. Okay? Yeah, because I was worried. This video actually goes on for a long time, but I guess I did the short one. And we actually do a slow motion of it. But could you see what happened with that? One of the things that I was talking about earlier where you don't get direct eye contact, what did that dog do? It actually tried to get direct eye contact. It came up in front of Strider, cut Strider off, and looked him straight in the eye. Was he aggressive? Nah. No, he wasn't aggressive. Was he being a pit bull? Yeah, he was definitely being a pit bull. But if you look, I don't know if I can do this. So he's almost going, look at me. Look at me. Yeah.
I get that with my pit bull. It's almost like he doesn't want to start the fight. He wants the other dog.
He wants yeah, it is. It's like, see the chip on my shoulder? Here. Take it off.
I'm not going to start it, but come on, you start it.
Right. And this dog never did start a fight, but in my opinion, it was very difficult to think of seeing this dog on a trail meeting other dogs and not going up to him and going, And so I said, well, I thought that the dog was a fine dog, that it wasn't necessarily a dog that anybody would put to sleep, but it was not good for their purposes. And they ended up passing on the dog, and the dog got adopted by somebody else, which was fine. I don't know what I'm going to do when Strider dies. He's probably about 11 now, and he's so good at meeting other dogs. He's just fantastic. Okay, so here's another meet and greet. This is from a while back. You can actually tell because that's Ray there, this dog is the dog that ended up, what was her name? Been here long enough to remember her name? Anyway, this was the dog that ended up not liking other dogs except this one. And she also didn't like children. This was the one that ended up going to the farm or the ranch or whatever.